Welcome to Power Your Story,
produced by students at After School Matters with production support from the Creative and Poster Studios.
Enjoy the show.
Hi there. This is Power Your Story Program Director Andrea Klunder. In this episode, we're sharing part 2 of roundtable conversations recorded by our student producers in the wake of the murder of George Floyd by police in 2020. If you haven't already, we encourage you to go back one episode to part 1 and listen to that one first, then come back to this one. Also, be kind to yourself and to the students who vulnerably and openly shared what were pretty fresh, raw emotions as the aftermath of this incident was unfolding. As mentioned in our previous episode, we encourage you to seek out and support commemorative events and grassroots organizations in your local community and take care of yourself during this time. Here is the second part of our conversation. Thank you for listening.
My name is Clara Alvarez, and today we're back with our second episode of our experiences with Black Lives Matter, protests, and police after the murder of George Floyd. Joining me are Elvis, Gennaro, D'Angelo, Jonas, Brandon, and Brooklyn. We would like to continue on talking about how the news portrayed what was happening versus what was happening in social media.
I think the news, honestly, portrayed it the wrong way. You don't just react to everything that you see. You don't know if it's true or not. Let the stuff play out, and then you got to realize what's really happening. You got to pay attention closely. Like, if they're doing something, let them do it. They're going to get caught. They're going to get in trouble. Let them do it. Like, you don't just tell them F the cops and this and that. You don't do that.
You can't really take 100% from either the social media point of view or the media point of view of television and all different types, because each one is going to only present what the other one doesn't want the other people to see. So they're only going to show the side that they want the people to see, and later on they'll just cut off the rest of what actually happened.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's not right to be just cutting stuff out.
Case to case, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you too, Brandon. That's why I took it upon myself to do my own research and look things up myself so that I could get all points of view instead of just listening to one biased point of view.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I agree with you guys as well, because the news portrayed it one thing and social media portrayed it other things. I attended protests as well and saw what was going on. So I know the news sort of portrayed the negative parts and they didn't really portray the good parts. And social media did the same thing as well. They portrayed the good parts, but they mostly portrayed all the looting and the rioting. So I agree with both sides.
Yeah, I feel like they left out the peaceful protests, definitely.
There were certain news outlets that did portray the peaceful protests, but the majority of them just show the negative sides.
Yeah.
True.
And it's exactly those peaceful protests that need to be the ones that were in play instead of all this other looting and using things as an excuse to go into Targets and start taking TVs and things like that.
But I think that certain ones, they decide to do the opposite of what the group wants them to do.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's the whole group. I'm just saying it's
right. That's what I'm saying.
People, yeah.
I agree, all of you, because of there's some social media been going on, not only on social media but on TV as well. It was crazy when people break into grocery stores, anything like that. So they're trying to steal anything.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I would say a lot of protesters saying they used to break in stores.
Not only that, I keep hearing about our mayor in Chicago. She was mad in the inside. She was sad in the outside because of the situation. And there's another lady, I'm not sure who she is. She's like an assistant, something like that. But she got here about in Chicago that there's a lot of destroying trees, breaking in. And they brought bats, sticks, gasoline.
Police cars.
Yeah, true. And it was everywhere in Chicago. Not only in Chicago, but in New York, Miami, LA, Texas, Pennsylvania, I think San Francisco. It was everywhere in the United States of America. And she was absolutely sad in the outside, but she got mad in the inside because they say that it was unacceptable. Why did they do that for? What kind of protest is this? Are they protesting to march back after what happened to George Floyd's death? Or are they trying to steal anything from the store? Because there's a police officer, he says that in an interview, what kind of protest is it? Are you guys protesting for to march back? Or you just try to steal everything they want? Because there are a lot of craziness outside. And there are some places that got break in my neighborhood where I live. For example, there was a phone store of Metro CPS. Some people steal like all the phones, Androids. There was another one in the dollar store, but it got broken in the window and there's nothing got steal. My reaction of what happened back in April when all this started, like, why is the craziness going on? Like, I've seen people like wild animals. They like to steal things or they like to fight each other or killing each other every single day, perhaps. But I saw some police that they were stealing things as well as the other protesters. I'm not sure it's true or not because I saw a photo on Instagram. Police they were stealing boxes of shoes. I think there was like Nike's, Jordan. So I seen some police not helping with the protest because I seen some police doing nothing and don't care about what happened this situation going on.
Another crucial thing is also, I remember speaking about it in the first one, but when they burned the American flag during the protest, I really didn't see the point in them doing that just because it wasn't really necessary. And it's also disrespectful to the men and women that died in any war. And it just disgraces their honor and what they fought for in this country.
How did you feel about the looting going on, and were you affected or any of your family members affected by the looting?
I was not affected, but there were lootings not specifically close to home, still in the area. I really don't see why they had to go as far as looting. That doesn't really go into doing a protest for what you believe in. There is no need to attack small businesses and big businesses alike because it doesn't really represent anything you're fighting for in the protest. I mean, the peaceful protests are fine, don't get me wrong, but I don't see the point in looting. That's just ridiculous in my opinion. People are just trying to get free things at that point.
Let me add to you, Brendan. I see some people on the internet not only burn their country, like you said, like they burn America, they're burning other country flag like Mexico. They're burning the flag of red, green, and black. That's the flag of African American culture that they're from like Nigeria, Africa, anything like that. So I see some people they doing that, like burning flags. Why did they do it? Why did they burn their other flag? I don't see like situation about it.
And I get what you're saying. They do burn other flags, but each flag that they've been burning, that's from their own country. So I don't see what they're trying to accomplish by burning a simple flag. They might think it's something about the government, but that still doesn't bring their point to where they can actually make some changes. During that time, it's more like they were throwing a tantrum rather than doing a peaceful protest and trying to get their voices actually heard.
Yeah, that's the thing because I don't know like what is the situation. I know that you said, but I don't know stuff like other countries. But I've been hearing about it when they fight because of little panel or they say that people are taking our job, just like they say about Mexicans. Donald Trump say about Mexicans like they're criminals. Say everybody know that, and people who from Nigeria and African American, they talking about like their country. Oh, talk about racism. A lot of hate as well because some people say that this country that is about racism, hate, murder, blood, killing each other. I don't know how this has been going on. I don't know how to say this. It's getting like complicated.
We have to realize that all lives are supposed to matter, no matter what the situation is. We've seen Black people get suppressed, but it's not just Blacks, though. Other people are impacted too. We need to realize that we're all in this together, and not all police are bad. I mean, my grandmother, she had a history with an officer pushing her down the stairs. But my grandmother told me her story. And she told me we're going to need police despite if you hate them or not, because the police put their life on the line, just like the army too. All emergency services put their life on the line for our country. We need to also think about this. Who are you going to call for help if you're in danger or anybody in danger overall? Who are you going to call? While we over here talking about to defund the police and then putting the blame on the top tier person.
I can see certain points on where you're talking about, but the reason that people are arguing about the police is that there were some officers that were accepted in without having proper training. And the thing that people want to get across is that they need the training. And as far as the all lives matter, they're not saying that all lives don't matter. They're just trying to bring more awareness to Black Lives Matter. There's no favoritism in either or. I can see both aspects. They're just trying to bring awareness to Black Lives Matter in that movement. There are some bad apples in each movement.
We can't control everything what Trump says. Trump is going to say anything at some point. Like, he's the president. He can say what he wants as long as it's not affecting people that's going to hurt them, as long as he's trying to help the American people, which I've seen.
The president can't say anything he wants because he's the president of the United States. Whatever he says, all the other countries are going to look at. What do you mean he could say whatever he wants? He can't say whatever he wants. He's representing the country.
Yeah, he can't set like a bad example for us. He can't have other countries looking badly at us because of what he's saying. I feel like he needs to use his words better and be a little bit more mature instead of going to social media.
The last I remember, what about Biden? Why did everybody make this idea saying President-elect Biden?
If we're going to Biden now, he actually chooses his words carefully compared to what Trump says. Trump just says anything he wants and doesn't think of the consequences that come along with it. Like the Iran deal, he was trying to trigger another nuclear war between Iran and America when there was no need to start a war between the two. Now he put Biden in a bad position to where he has to fix all of Trump's little mistakes that you claim he just was speaking his mind, but he was representing the country, so it affects the country.
So let's do a quick redirect back to the original topic, talking about what our experiences with the protests, with the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yes. Every protest what I seen on my phone is the alarm when something's going on out there. I tell my parents to stay home and don't go anywhere. I totally remember breaking news from George Floyd was killed by a police officer. His neck was squeezed down by a police officer. He's saying, I can't breathe. After minutes later, he was dead. After George Floyd died, people are getting mad, destroying buildings, destroying police departments, everything they can steal.
Jonas, how did that make you feel when you were seeing all of that happening, when you were reading about that?
It makes me feel upset because it wants me to go join them. I was thinking I'm not going because I stayed and locked out the doors and don't let anyone get in.
Did you know anyone who went to the protests?
Nope, no, not just everybody. My family members are staying at home. For a month, when the protests was keep continuing, we went outside and look around the area. We saw some buildings that being closed. They use wood to cover the windows so people not get in. Everywhere I see in Chicago, using wood to cover the windows and doors.
Honestly, it varied from neighborhood to neighborhood. What I mean by that is, like, I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but majority of the damage that occurred on the south side of Chicago. I mean, there was some smaller ones that occurred on the north side, but majority occurred on the south side, which I think was still pretty bad because there's only like small businesses that were on the south side that got really impacted thanks to all the rioting and looting. That's why I didn't think it was bad when people started defending little stores like that because it's their livelihood and I respected it because it's their right. And I mean, to be fair, it's not like if we think about it, if that was our home, it's like they're just coming in and destroying it. It's easier for the bigger companies to replace things, but for the little guys, it's harder because it comes out of their pocket.
When the looting started, I agreed with the big businesses getting looted in because like they have insurance, they're like mostly covered, so of course they could replace their items. But small businesses, we're not sure if they actually have good insurance and if like their insurance is gonna cover all the damage. So like that's when I actually like felt bad because like those were small businesses and those like help family get money for like to pay for the children's education and like their house.
What I saw is people are drawing a picture of George Floyd with their art paintings, graffitis, and photographs, and putting on the walls and by the windows so everybody can know him.
Yeah, I hear that too.
The last time I saw a picture of George Floyd, I took a picture with my cell phone, and I still have it.
Ryan mentioned that the media didn't show what also started the chaos, and he said that police shouldn't have military-grade weapons. That should be the National Guard's job. And all I gotta say is that I agree with what Ryan said. So I guess I'll let Brooklyn explain this.
I agree with what Ryan and Claire were saying. I saw some videos where like there are police officers joining in with the protesters and telling them that we have your back and stuff and we hear you and like we're sorry that our system is so broken. And then there were other ones where those police officers were using very high grade weapons and things like that and using them on the protesters, which is really wrong because I definitely think that's the National Guard's job. And I think that's why, like Ryan is saying in the chat, that's why people say to defund the police because they have a little bit too much power.
Okay, but think about it like this. We won't be able to call in the National Guard for other situations. And if you try to defund the police, yes, I understand that there's the bad apples from like the police in general. And I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy road and all cops are good because not all cops are. But if you try to defund the police and you take away their resources, you're basically going to be affecting the bad neighborhoods that already barely have protection. And if you defund the police there, who already kind of know how to manage the area and keep it somewhat safer than it normally would be, it's going to be worse for the younger generation because you don't know what kind of influences are going to be involved when they grow up in a bad neighborhood. And that's typically what happens when they defund certain areas. They defund the lower class instead of the upper class because the upper class can fund themselves. So that's why when people say defund the police, I don't agree with that certain statement. It's not going to defund the police. It's going to defund the police that are actually trying to make a difference in certain areas of Chicago.
I think it's more about what happens after they defund the police. I think that the system is already so broken that like it's hard to come back from that. I mean, our police system, like those used to be people who, if you go way back, they were people who stood for slavery and stood for racism and thought those were good things. That's all that's rooted in our police system. I feel like when they say defund police, they're saying that, but they're also talking about like what comes after a new system, a better system that's more fair.
Okay, if you're trying to say about making a new system, yes, I completely agree about breaking down the system in general and building it up. But if you want to talk about like making an entirely new type of getting involved with like private contractors, I don't agree with that because if you want to get private contractors in here, that's going to be a whole different situation and a whole other set of problems that are going to come at the doorstep of not only Chicago itself, but in general. Think about it. Not all police are good, but there are police that know their areas and their neighborhoods that they work in. If you bring in a fresh face and a new person that knows nothing about the area or the place that they're patrolling, they're just going to mistake any random kid that comes down the street wearing a hoodie, and it's going to be the same thing over and over. They're just going to say, oh, this system is broken too because this happened again. I 100% think it's going to happen again because regardless of what people try to change in the system, it's going to sadly happen because if we try to bring in a separate party that doesn't know the neighborhood, they're going to get more scared than a normal person that's already used to the neighborhood would be in general. So I think it would have to be going back into the system itself and trying to rebuild it, not trying to replace an entire system itself.
You say that cops are bad. I get it, but what happens that people don't trust a police officer? You never know when police officer can treat you bad or treat you good. You never know if they're good or bad, but because I've been hearing because some people don't trust the police. Why? Because one, they don't do their job. Two, they don't care about your situation. If you have fighting someone like your neighbor next door, they don't care about like your situation or your excuses. Only just care like do their job and gain pay. I see some police they like to use their weapon like a gun, sanitize.
Taser? Yeah.
Yeah, the taser. I heard that some polices they like to kill gangbangers. That's what I heard about it. Getting into their family's home. I remember one time there's some police that hit a family because their son has a weapon in their house and they're trying to hit the family, like the son, the father, then the mother. That's like get out of control. Why are they doing that? They had nothing like why you want to check their house? Are they just thinking that they're hiding something from them?
Some police officers aren't that great. And I fully admit that because not all officers are great. But if people automatically assume the worst of all police, the ones that
Yeah.
are good, it's going to make it harder for them to approach people without people getting the wrong idea and automatically, I don't want to say start issues, but make the person that's trying to interview them their life harder just because they think that if they tell them it's going to go bad for them or whatever.
Like I'm trying to explain how police like act like this, and I keep hearing people say they curse at the polices, they hate them, or can jump out their car, and the people who curse the police, they would tell them at their faces, "You have a problem with us," so they try to hurt them or use a weapon to like calm down, or it's going to be issue with us, or they're going to arrest them. I've never seen it like happen in real life. I seen it probably on the internet, like Facebook, or it could be on a TV show when they happen on the streets, or it can be in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to mention is that even though people don't like the police, not everyone can get all those high, good quality jobs. So someone has to end up working with the police or being a part of the police. I'm not saying they have to, but at least some of them have the courage to wear the badge because it pays the bills or they just need a job in general. And that's why I don't see the police as good or bad. It goes again by case depending on the person.
I know that you say that they hate them. They really do not trust them, the police, because they just want to hurt you or probably to arrest you, or probably they can do like kill you. Like after what happened to, look at what happened to Juan McDonald. Juan McDonald, I saw the video what happened that day when Juan McDonald, he was getting close to police, like what was wrong with him. Then guess what would happen? The police shoot him. I don't know how many times he shot him. I think I would say like 14 or 50 times, really gun bullets. Since he's in jail right now, they were marching as well after what happened to George Floyd. That police offers to go to jail for the rest of his life, like I don't know how many years and all that stuff. They keep hearing about killing African American people. They use like weapons.
Okay, now that we brought up other victims, I wanted to move on to our next question, which is how is this related to other victims and stories of police brutality, especially against people of color? For example, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, and other victims.
Do you guys remember hearing about any of those other stories besides George Floyd of some of these other people who have been in the news, who have been killed by police? In some cases, who were not committing any crime. There was a mistake made and they still were killed. Originally, no police officers were punished for accidentally making a mistake and killing somebody who was perfectly innocent. And the argument is that the only reason why the police get away with doing this is because the people they killed were not white. That if they had accidentally killed someone who was white, they would get punished. But because these people are not white, they get away with it. That's one argument that's being made. What do you remember hearing about any of these other victims? Elvis brought up Laquan McDonald, which was a number of years ago in Chicago, and it was a big
I have no
deal.
comment.
Well, me personally, from what you just brought up about if it was a white person compared to someone of color, I honestly do agree that being white, you get certain privileges that you wouldn't get if you were a person of color, specifically because I've seen it happen regardless of what people say. I've witnessed it with my own eyes. Even though they're going to say, oh no, it was just helping him a little bit more or something like that, they'll make up something saying that I help them equally as much as I help everyone else. But no, you notice the big difference compared to someone being white and someone being of a different ethnicity. I think even for us, we have disabilities, but we're still people of color compared to someone who is white. I still think that there's more benefits that are offered. Even though we have disabilities, there are more opportunities offered to people who are white compared to people who are of a different ethnicity. At least that's my point of view of it. I'm not saying that there's not whites that are poor or anything like that, but majority of the time, if you're white, you get certain privileges that you wouldn't get in general.
I want to talk about the murder of Breonna Taylor compared to the student in Parkland who shot students and didn't get a fair treatment. Breonna Taylor's home was broken into by the cops. They were trying to do a search to find something which was clearly not found there. She was killed. The case was taken to court, and all they did was charge one of the cops with the bullets he had missed, and there was no justice there at all. But with the Parkland shooting, they gave the guy a sentence, of course, but they saw him as someone with a mental illness, so they let him get past it. So there's a huge difference there because if you're white, of course, you're going to get more privileges and your skin color is like the thing that protects you. But if you were black and you did something like that, they'll kill you right on the spot right there because your skin is seen as a weapon to them.
I definitely agree. One of my favorite movies is The Hate You Give. And a line from there is, how can I ever be unarmed when my skin color is the weapon that you fear? And I feel like that's a really powerful message.
I agree with that certain message that was in that movie. I don't remember fully about the movie. I do remember that specific quote, I guess you could say. That was one that kind of, even if you don't watch the movie, everyone's probably heard it once or twice. I'm not saying that all police do it, but there are some that automatically see skin color and make assumptions just based off of what they see. It's their life, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that people were unarmed and still fired upon with no proper, I mean, there was consequences, but not as severe as it should have been, because at the end of the day it's a loss of life regardless of what anyone else says. It was a loss of life.
What do you think about the government and the justice system has handled the prosecuting for these cases?
How the police can be about situation about the people got murdered. For my reason is, let's say the government would say about the police should probably like go to jail or probably fire them, like lose their job and lose their career. Like, like they give like badges and their gun weapon, like they used to protect themselves, like that. I heard about it because I heard that if the people who wants to become a cop and they say that they're gonna take away everything, like police school, like they go train, become an officer, how to use a weapon and how to protect people who are in danger by someone, I don't know, like try to kill them or probably rob you like that. And also they're gonna take away like school. Like school is from the government. They pay kids to go to school, especially like firemen. Like firemen is from the government because they get paid to what they need. Like, they need like a fire truck, protection, uniform, a hat, and some gasoline to breathe. Where they go in the house that is on fire and rescue people. Now the police station is from the government as well, because they get paid to the polices to build a police station, a police car like they give them, and some weapons to protect themselves, and especially uniform. So now they're saying that they're going to take away everything after what happened to George Floyd's death. And there's not going to be like any more police school training, police weapons, police car, uniform, any kind of stuff. They're going to really take it away after what happened to George. And I don't know if the people will be happy about it, because like some of them want to be police one day in the future. Like I get that, but I'm not sure it's gonna be happening or be true. But I heard that they're gonna like take it away, everything the police has done.
So, just to clarify, you think that if the police have more training and better training on how to do their job really well and how to stay safe, that that would reduce the amount of problems that we have? Is that what you're thinking? That they need
Yeah,
like better training and more support?
yeah, and also I want to say that the police school, they need to take serious about it and be responsible. I know like police, like they like to hurt people, kill them for no reason. They're just like doing the job and they had no idea what they're doing. So if you have no idea what you're doing, so what kind of police school are they teaching you? Are they teaching you like how to kill people, like choke them, like what happened to George Floyd, or they teaching them you don't care about some extraction like they're telling you to do, anything like that. So probably everybody to hear like they need to be support, caring, patient, obviously respect to others of not hurting them, being positive. If there's a serious person like calling for help or something having goes to happen, like danger or anybody, they need to be supported, like help, because people they need help of what is happening from others. So I think the police station, and especially the police school, like when people they go to train and become a police officers, they need to do that. They really need to, because if you don't do it, they're gonna like be consequences. They're gonna be excuses. They're gonna be lots of problems with people. Like these polices are not doing their job well, so they really need to do that. For my option.
Me personally, when it comes to like the justice system and the government in general, I feel like, once again, I don't think we should replace the whole thing, but we should indeed go into like doing a sort of deep cleanse of people who, in general, like fixing the system because, like you said, it's based off of people of color and majority of whites get off easy. I think that we should just have a kind of a deep overhaul of everyone who is in the justice system and in the government to make sure that everything is actually equal, like America stands for, where we stand for equal rights and everything has to be equal. But even though we say this stuff, everything is not equal. Everything is more of like, okay, you do this favor for me, I guess I'll help you out here. Or you don't want to help me, I won't help you. Or if they don't see any benefit coming their way, they're not going to help you at all. And I feel like that's something that we really need to change because we're basically the new generation. And at some point, everything is going to have to be renewed, I guess you could say, in a way. And if we have all these negative influencers that are like racist or not as open-minded as you need to be in order to hear both sides of an argument, then it's something that we don't want to influence other kids and put into their minds, because if we don't get rid of it now, it's going to be something that will never get rooted out of the system in general.
Yeah, like that's the thing. But what happens? It keeps continuing, and never's gonna be not actually stop it. Like do something. That's my thoughts about it. But what happens is it still continues, and they don't do something. Just gonna doing nothing. Not gonna work. I think people probably they don't care about it. Just like just let them to continue what they're doing, like that. So that's more my option. Like you were saying, Brandon, like renewing, like about racism, anything like that. It's just like continuing, and it will not never stop it or do something before it's bad going to happen.
There was a 10-year-old boy who was lynched like Emmett Till, and it's on social media. It's in the year of 2020. That's why I agree on both sides what each person is trying to say. Because I was looking at that and I was a little bit heartbroken, a little bit. It says Quan Charles shared Till Justice 2020. And this is a picture of the boy. This is a picture of him. His face is like, you guys see it? The mother was sharing her word for it.
I think this was in Louisiana. It says that he was 15 years old and they weren't sure what happened to him. He was killed, but some people think he drowned and some people think that he was lynched, and they weren't really sure what happened.
Because they're still treating us like Black says Black lives don't matter. And I agree on all lives matter, but they're still doing Blacks the same way they were. And this is proof of it.
Does anyone else have anything else to say before we close up?
Police needs to be nice with the people, not to hurt again. Make sure it won't happen this again. If a police kill another person, there will be more protests.
I don't like that how they tear his knees down. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how they bear their knees up. And George Floyd said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Now he's gone. George Floyd, his family, they are sad. He had his daughter and his wife, all his family. They miss him so much because it's crazy.
Well, this has been a wonderful and interesting conversation with amazing ideas and amazing opinions. I hope we get more people to talk about these situations in the future. Remember to always spread awareness about these issues using your social media platforms. Thank you for listening to Power Your Story.
Power Your Story podcast is produced by students at After School Matters with production support from the Creative and Poster Studios.
Find us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Power Your Story Podcast.
Got a question or suggestion for our show? Contact us at poweryourstorypodcast.com. Thank you for listening and have a great day.